Have you ever wondered how a single decision can completely change the course of two lives? Snoop Dogg, never imagined that a casual detour from my usual route would lead me to one of the most transformative moments of my life. The Long Beach sun was beating down hard that summer afternoon as I drove my customized Cadillac through the streets that watched me grow up. The windows were down, letting in the warm California air along with the familiar sounds of the neighborhood. It was one of those days when I decided to take a small detour, perhaps by divine intuition, perhaps just out of nostalgia. Growing up in Long Beach wasn't easy. The streets could be merciless, but they also forged friendships I believed were indestructible. Marcus Johnson was one of those friends. We shared everything: the same dreams, the same struggles, the same street corners. He had a natural talent with words, a gift for rap that sometimes even made me envious. "You're going far, Snoop," he would always say, tapping my chest. "But I'll be right behind you, bet on that." That was before the fame, before the money, before our paths separated almost 2 decades ago. What had happened to Marcus? This question occasionally appeared in my mind over the years, but life kept its accelerated pace, and I rarely had time to seek answers. Until that day, I was passing under the Artesia Avenue bridge, a place we used to hang out when we were just 2 kids with big dreams and empty pockets. That's when I noticed a solitary figure sitting in the shade, surrounded by a few belongings stuffed in worn plastic bags. There was something familiar about that man, something in the way he sat, looking at the horizon as if composing verses in his mind. I parked the car a little further ahead and felt a strange uneasiness coming over me. I got out of the vehicle, adjusted my sunglasses, and walked toward the figure. "Hey man, you doing all right?" I asked, maintaining a respectful distance. When he turned his face to me, the world seemed to freeze. Even through the shaggy beard, tired eyes, and marks that time and hardship had left, I immediately recognized him. Marcus, my childhood partner, my brother from another mother, now reduced to living under a bridge. "Snoop? Calvin, is that really you?" His voice was hoarse, but still carried that musical cadence I knew so well. For a moment, neither of us knew what to say. The contrast between our realities was so stark, it almost physically hurt. Me with my designer clothes, jewelry, and a musical empire, him with worn clothes and his entire life fitting into a few bags. "Marcus, it's been a long time, man. What happened?" That was all I could ask, feeling a lump in my throat. He looked away, the shame evident in his gestures. "Life happened, Calvin. Some wrong choices, a difficult divorce, lost my job, then the house. You know how it is. One problem leads to another." I sat down beside him, ignoring the dirt on the ground. At that moment, I wasn't Snoop Dogg, the rap star. I was just Calvin Broadus, the boy from Long Beach who grew up with this man. "How long have you been here?" I asked softly. "Almost a year," he replied, a sad smile forming on his cracked lips. "I've gotten used to it, you know? I have my little corner, I know the right people. It could be worse." But I knew it could be much better. As Marcus talked about his new normal, my mind was already working on possibilities. How could I help him? What would be truly useful, beyond simply giving money? Of course, money would help in the short term, but Marcus needed more than that. He needed to regain his dignity, his purpose. Remember those rhymes you used to write? That one about the stars being witnesses to our dreams. I asked, trying to reconnect with the Marcus I knew. His eyes lit up momentarily. "You still remember that? Stars in the sky, silent witnesses, keeping secrets of our most precious hopes. Man, that was an eternity ago. Do you still write?" I asked. Marcus pulled a tattered notebook from one of his bags. "Never stopped. It's what keeps me sane. When you have so little, words become even more valuable." I flipped through the notebook and was impressed. The rhymes were powerful, honest, loaded with life experience that couldn't be fabricated. They were stories of struggle, overcoming despair, and small daily victories that no one else noticed. It was poetry born from pain, but also from resilience. It was at that moment that I had an idea. "Marcus, let's take a ride. I need to show you something." He hesitated, looking at his few belongings. I can't leave my stuff here. We can put everything in my car, I offered. Trust me, like in the old days. After some reluctance, Marcus agreed. We put his bags in the trunk of my Cadillac and set off. During the journey, we began to fill in the gaps of 2 decades. He told me about his failed marriage, about the children he rarely saw now, about the construction job he lost when the company went bankrupt, about the downward spiral that led him to the streets. There was no self-pity in his voice, just a resigned acceptance of circumstances. As I drove, I remembered my own difficult moments, the times I almost lost everything, the crossroads where one wrong decision could have led me to a completely different fate. Was it pure luck? No, I don't believe that. It was because I had people who believed in me at the right moments. Dr. Dre saw something in me when I was just another kid from Long Beach with problems, and now perhaps I could do the same for Marcus. I stopped in front of a small recording studio I had recently purchased as an investment. It wasn't my main studio, but a more intimate space I used for special projects. "What are we doing here?" Marcus asked, clearly confused. "I want to hear your rhymes on the microphone." I replied simply. He backed away, insecure. "Snoop, I'm not in any condition. Look at me, man." "I am looking at you, Marcus. I'm seeing the same talent that always existed, just waiting for the right opportunity." We entered the studio, and I could see his eyes widening as he looked at the equipment. I put him in the booth, adjusted the microphone, and selected a smooth beat, something that would complement his lyrical style well. "Just let it flow," I instructed through the intercom. Like in the old days, when we used to rhyme on the corner until sunrise. Marcus closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and began to recite. The first words came out hesitantly, but he soon found his rhythm. What followed was one of the rawest and most emotional performances I've ever witnessed. He talked about life on the streets, about social invisibility, about how it felt to be ignored by people who rushed past, avoiding his gaze. He talked about the cold nights, about hunger, about persistent hope, even when everything seemed lost. When he finished, there were tears in his eyes. And in mine too, though I try to hide them. "That was incredible, man," I said, entering the booth. "You still have the gift." Marcus smiled, a genuine smile this time. "I miss this, being heard." We spent the next few hours recording a few more tracks. With each new attempt, Marcus became more confident, more connected with his own voice. It was like watching someone wake up from a long sleep. While he recorded, I made some calls, first to my personal assistant, then to my lawyer, and finally to James, a friend who ran a rehabilitation center for homeless people. I was planning something, but I knew I needed to take it slow. Marcus didn't need charity. He needed opportunity and respect. When we finished the recording session, it was already night. Marcus looked exhausted, but in a good way, like someone who had finally exercised long dormant muscles. "Where do you want me to drop you off?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Back to the bridge, I guess," he replied, reality starting to weigh on his shoulders again. "I have a different proposal," I said, trying to sound casual. "I have a vacant apartment in the complex I bought last year. It's small, but it has everything you need. You could stay there while we work on these recordings." Marcus looked at me with suspicion. "I don't want charity, Snoop. It's humiliating enough that you found me like this." "It's not charity," I insisted. "It's an advance. I want to produce an EP with your stories, with your experiences. There are thousands of people who need to hear what you have to say, who need this perspective. And I'll be honest, this benefits me too. Your talent is real, and I have a good eye for business." He considered the proposal for a moment. "What if it doesn't work out? If nobody wants to hear the stories of a homeless man, then I will have invested in a friend." "And that's reason enough," I replied. "But it will work out, Marcus. Trust my instinct for these things." After some more persuasion, he finally accepted. I took him to the apartment, a simple but comfortable place in a quiet neighborhood. He remained silent as he explored the space. A bedroom, living room, kitchen, and bathroom, simple luxuries that had become unreachable for him. "Tomorrow we'll buy some clothes and supplies," I explained, "and on Monday, you have an appointment with Dr. Mitchell. He's a good doctor, he'll check your health. Marcus stopped walking around the apartment and faced me. Why are you doing this, Calvin? Really? Why now, after so many years? It was a fair question. Why hadn't I looked for him before? Why did it take a casual encounter for me to care about the fate of someone who was once so close? Because it could have been me under that bridge, I answered honestly. Because I had people who believed in me when I needed it. And because at the end of the day, we're just two kids from Long Beach, and that will never change, no matter how many Grammys I win or how long you spend on the streets. He nodded, accepting my answer. Before leaving, I left some money for emergencies, food in the refrigerator, and clean clothes that I had delivered. I also left a cell phone so we could stay in touch. Rest well, I said, walking to the door. Tomorrow a new phase begins. Marcus's recovery process was neither easy nor quick. In the first few days, he struggled with insecurity, with the feeling that he didn't deserve this chance. There were moments when he almost gave up, moments when the weight of years on the streets and the accumulated trauma seemed insurmountable. James, from the rehabilitation center, was crucial. He helped Marcus enter a support program for homeless people with psychological counseling and support groups. We discovered that Marcus had been suffering from undiagnosed depression for years, a condition that had contributed to his situation. At the same time, we continued working on the recordings. The studio became a sanctuary for him, a place where he could transform his pain into art. I brought in some of my producers to collaborate, but I made it clear that the voice and vision were Marcus's. We didn't want to create just another commercial product. We wanted to tell true stories, stories that rarely reach the mainstream. After 3 months of intensive work, the EP Under the Bridge was ready. 7 powerful tracks, raw, unfiltered. I invited some trusted journalists for a private listening session. Without initially revealing the complete story behind the project, I wanted them to judge the work on its artistic merit, not as a charity project. The response was surprisingly positive. The authenticity of the lyrics, combined with high-quality production, created something unique. One journalist described it as the voice of the invisible finally amplified through impeccable beats. That's when we decided to tell the complete story. How I found Marcus, his time on the streets, our childhood friendship revived through music. Interest increased exponentially. It wasn't just about the music now. It was about redemption, second chances, friendship. The release of the EP coincided with the creation of a foundation we named Bridges, dedicated to helping homeless people who had unrecognized artistic talents. The idea was simple. Provide not only shelter and basic necessities, but also a path for artistic expression and potentially a new career. Marcus became the face of the foundation, not as a pity story, but as an example of resilience. He began giving talks at schools and community centers, sharing his experience and encouraging young people to value their gifts and support each other. 1 year after our reunion, Under the Bridge had become an unexpected success. It wasn't a hit on the main charts, but it had found its audience and, more importantly, had started necessary conversations about homelessness, mental health, and the transformative power of art. Marcus now had his own apartment, bought with the royalties from the EP. He had reconnected with his children and was slowly rebuilding those relationships. He still faced challenges, still struggled with depression on some days, but now he had tools and a support network. As for me, this experience transformed me in ways I didn't expect. It made me question how many other talents were hidden on the streets, how many powerful stories would never be heard. It made me more aware of my own privileges and how the line between success and failure can be thin. On a particularly significant afternoon, Marcus and I returned to that bridge. It was different now, with a small sign marking the first outreach point of the Bridges Foundation, a place where homeless people could get information about shelter, mental health, and artistic opportunities. "You saved my life that day," Marcus commented as we observed the site. "No, man," I replied. "You saved your own life. I just offered a microphone." He smiled, knowing we were both right in a way. You know what's crazier? thinking about how many others are out there just waiting for someone to stop and really see them. I nodded, feeling the weight and truth of those words. Then let's keep looking. And that's what I've been doing since then. I can't help everyone, I can't change the system alone, but I can stop, look, and listen. I can offer opportunities where possible. I can use my platform to amplify silenced voices. Sometimes, when I'm on tour, I find myself looking under bridges and overpasses at people on corners with signs asking for help. And I wonder, how many Marcuzes are out there? How many talents, dreams, and stories are we losing because we choose not to see? The story with Marcus taught me that sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone isn't money or material things, but opportunity and dignity. It taught me that we should never judge anyone's path because we're all just a few unfortunate decisions, a few strokes of bad luck away from losing everything. And most importantly, it taught me that it's never too late to reconnect, rebuild, and redeem. That true friendships can survive decades of separation, drastically different circumstances, worlds that seem incompatible. When I think about that afternoon under the Artesia Avenue bridge, I still feel a chill down my spine. What if I had chosen another path that day? What if I hadn't recognized Marcus? How many opportunities to make a difference do we miss simply because we aren't paying attention? Today, Marcus and I meet regularly, not just to work on foundation projects, but also to keep alive that friendship that began on the streets of Long Beach so many decades ago, to remember where we came from and be grateful for where we are. And what about the next time you pass by someone who is homeless? Maybe it's just a stranger in need of help, but maybe, just maybe, it's someone who was once important in your life, or someone who could become important if you just stop to listen to their story. Because in the end, that's what life is about. Intertwined stories crossing paths, opportunities to make a difference when we least expect it. And sometimes it's on bridges, those structures made to connect places, that we find our deepest connections.